The alien student caressed Nicholas's muscular human thigh with his purple tentacle, captivated by his unfamiliar anatomy, not knowing if he could control his racing desires. As the only human enrolled at the prestigious Xandar University on planet Andromeda Prime, Nicholas Holmes often felt like an outsider among the diverse alien student body. At 21, the 6'2" xenobiology student with short brown hair and piercing blue eyes found himself constantly fielding questions about Earth and human culture from curious classmates. One fateful day, while navigating the campus's towering crystalline structures and exotic flora, Nicholas collided with Horus, a striking Andromedan male. Standing an imposing 7'5", with deep purple skin, 4 muscular arms, and glowing amber eyes, Horus was the son of a high-ranking government official and had never encountered a human in person. Intrigued, Horus insisted on treating Nicholas to a drink at the nearby campus cafe as an apology. Over strange, luminescent beverages, Horus bombarded Nicholas with questions about human biology and history, his fascination growing with each answer. Nicholas, flattered by the attention and eager to make friends, happily obliged. But their pleasant conversation was abruptly shattered by the arrival of 5 angry Andromedan students, led by the hulking Zorax. The group accused Nicholas of corrupting their world and demanded he leave the university at once. Nicholas realized he would have to fight for his right to stay, or be forced to abandon his dreams of studying on Andromeda Prime forever. Nicholas clenched his fists and stepped forward, staring up at Zorax with unwavering blue eyes. "I have just as much right to study here as any of you. I won't be bullied into leaving." But before the confrontation could escalate further, Horus intervened, placing 2 of his forearms on Zorax's chest. "Enough, Zorax. Nicholas is my guest and a student of this university. You will leave him be, or face the consequences of defying my family." The gang hesitated, knowing the weight of Horus's influence. With a final glare, Zorax spat, "This isn't over," before stalking away, his cronies following close behind. Nicholas released a shaky breath, turning to Horus with a grateful smile. "Thank you, Horus. I don't know what I would have done without you." Horus returned the smile, his amber eyes softening. "Think nothing of it, Nicholas. I couldn't stand by and watch them mistreat you. Perhaps we could continue our conversation another time, under more pleasant circumstances." Nicholas agreed, and over the following weeks the two met frequently, their bond growing stronger with each encounter. They shared stories of their homeworlds, compared cultural traditions, and discovered a mutual fascination with each other's unique physiology. One quiet evening, as they pored over textbooks in the opulent comfort of Horus's dorm, the Andromedan found himself entranced by Nicholas's hair, a feature so foreign to his own species. "Nicholas," he murmured, "may I touch your hair?" Surprised but curious, Nicholas nodded. As Horus's fingers combed through the soft brown strands, a tingling sensation spread across the human's scalp. Horus's touch was electric, sending shivers down Nicholas's spine. The air grew thick with Horus's pheromones, a heady musk that made Nicholas's head swim. Their eyes met, a silent understanding passing between them. In a heartbeat, they were in each other's arms, lips locked in a searing kiss, hands roaming over unfamiliar planes of flesh. Nicholas and Horus froze, their hearts racing. It was Zorax and his gang, and they sounded out for blood. The sudden banging caused Nicholas and Horus to spring apart, their hearts racing. Horus quickly adjusted his clothes, trying to hide any evidence of their heated tryst. He took a deep breath, walked to the door, and opened it, revealing Zorax and his 4 burly cronies. "What's going on here?" Zorax demanded, his amber eyes narrowing as he scanned the room. Horus remained calm, one set of his arms crossed over his chest, while the other gestured to the textbooks scattered across the table. "Nicholas and I were merely studying for our upcoming xenobiology exam," Horus explained smoothly. "Is there a problem?" Zorax sneered, clearly not convinced by the explanation. "I've heard rumors about you two getting a little too close. If word gets out about your inappropriate relationship, I wonder what the university authorities or your father might think." Nicholas, his frustration with Zorax's constant harassment reaching a boiling point, stood up and faced the towering Andromedan. "Why don't you mind your own damn business, Zorax?" he snapped, blue eyes blazing. Enraged by Nicholas's defiance, Zorax lashed out with one of his muscular arms, aiming a punch at the human's face. Nicholas managed to duck just in time, but the blow connected with Horus's jaw instead, sending him stumbling backward. Seeing Horus hurt, something inside Nicholas snapped. With a roar of fury, he tackled Zorax to the ground, straddling his chest and raining down a flurry of punches on the Andromedan's face. Zorax's cronies, momentarily stunned by the human's unexpected strength and ferocity, hesitated before diving in to aid their leader. Horus, recovering from the punch, managed to grab Nicholas and haul him off Zorax. Using his forearms to his advantage, he held back the other Andromedans, his amber eyes blazing with anger. "Get out!" he shouted. "Leave now, before I call campus security and have you all expelled." Zorax staggered to his feet, purple blood dripping from his nose and mouth. He glared at Nicholas and Horus, his eyes filled with hatred. "This isn't over," he snarled, before turning and stalking out of the room, his cronies trailing behind him. Nicholas and Horus stood in silence for a moment, their chests heaving as they tried to process what had just happened. Horus turned to Nicholas, his amber eyes filled with a mixture of concern and admiration. "Are you all right?" he asked softly, reaching out to cup Nicholas's face with one of his hands. Nicholas leaned into the touch, his heart still racing from the adrenaline. "I'm fine," he replied, managing a shaky smile. "But what about you? Zorax hit you pretty hard." Horus shrugged, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. "It'll take more than a cheap shot from that brute to keep me down." His expression grew serious, and he pulled Nicholas closer, their bodies pressing together. "I'm sorry you had to go through that. I never meant for our relationship to cause you so much trouble." Nicholas shook his head, his hands coming up to rest on Horus's broad chest. "Don't apologize. I'm not going to let a bunch of narrow-minded bullies dictate who I can and can't be with. I care about you, Horus, and I'm not going to let anyone come between us." Horus smiled, his amber eyes softening as he gazed down at the human in his arms. "I care about you too, Nicholas, more than I ever thought possible." He leaned down, capturing Nicholas's lips in a tender kiss, pouring all of his affection and admiration into the gesture. As they lost themselves in the kiss, the chaos of the confrontation fading away, Nicholas knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, he and Horus would face them together. But for now, in the warmth and safety of Horus's embrace, everything else could wait. After the door slammed shut behind Zorax and his cronies, Horus turned his attention to Nicholas, taking the human's bruised hands in his own. He retrieved a small first-aid kit from a nearby shelf and carefully applied a cool blue salve to Nicholas's knuckles, massaging it into the skin with gentle strokes. As Horus tended to his wounds, Nicholas couldn't help but stare at the Andromedan's chiseled features, marveling at the strength and compassion he had shown in defending him. The adrenaline from the fight still coursed through his veins, mingling with a growing desire for the man before him. Horus met Nicholas's gaze, his amber eyes filled with admiration. "You were incredibly brave standing up to Zorax like that," he murmured, his deep voice sending shivers down Nicholas's spine. Unable to resist any longer, Nicholas surged forward, capturing Horus's lips in a searing kiss. Horus responded with equal fervor, his forearms wrapping around Nicholas's body, pulling him closer. They stumbled towards Horus's bed, shedding clothes as they went. Nicholas gasped as Horus's hands roamed over his skin, each touch igniting a fire within him. He explored Horus's body in return, tracing the ridges of his muscles and the smooth planes of his purple skin. Horus laid Nicholas down on the bed, his amber eyes drinking in the sight of the human's unfamiliar anatomy. He trailed his lips and tongue along Nicholas's jawline, down his neck and across his chest, savoring every inch of his soft, pale flesh. Their lovemaking was passionate and intense, their bodies moving together in perfect harmony. Nicholas cried out in ecstasy as Horus filled him, the Andromedan's 4 arms holding him close as they rocked against each other, the room filled with the sounds of their moans and the rustling of sheets, their pleasure building until they both reached a shattering climax. Afterwards they lay tangled together, basking in the afterglow of their lovemaking. Horus pressed a gentle kiss to Nicholas's forehead, his amber eyes soft and vulnerable. "Nicholas," he whispered, "I think I'm falling for you." Nicholas's heart skipped a beat at the confession. "I feel the same way, Horus," he admitted, "but I'm worried about what this means for us. A human and an Andromedan. We're going to face a lot of prejudice and opposition." Horus tightened his embrace, his voice filled with determination. "I don't care what anyone thinks. I'm willing to fight for our love no matter what obstacles we face." Reassured by Horus's words, Nicholas nestled into his lover's arms, allowing the steady rhythm of the Andromedan's heartbeat to lull him to sleep. Little did they know, as they drifted off in each other's embrace, that Zorax had secretly recorded their intimate moment, already plotting his next move to tear them apart. Nicholas awoke with a start to the sound of pounding on Horus's dorm room door. He sat up, disoriented, as Horus groggily disentangled himself from the sheets and stumbled to the door. When Horus opened it, they were confronted by a group of stern-faced university officials, led by the imposing figure of Dean Zorgath. The dean held up a small device, and a holographic recording of Nicholas and Horus's passionate lovemaking from the night before sprang to life, hovering in the air between them. Nicholas felt his stomach drop as Zorgath spoke, his voice dripping with disdain. "You are both in violation of the university's code of conduct, which strictly forbids intimate relationships between different species. You are to be expelled immediately, and your families will be informed of your shameful actions." Zorgath smiled smugly. "It was Zorax who brought this to our attention. It seems he had good reason to be concerned about your association with this human." Nicholas, realizing they had been set up, tried to intervene. "Please, sir, our relationship is genuine. It's not some sordid affair. We truly care for each other." But Zorgath cut him off with a dismissive wave of his hand. "A human has no business meddling in Andromedan affairs. You will both be escorted off campus immediately. Security, please remove them." As the guards stepped forward, Horus held up a hand, his amber eyes flashing with determination. "We will go peacefully, but know this. I will appeal this decision. I will not rest until our names are cleared, and this injustice is rectified." Nicholas, his heart heavy with guilt, turned to Horus as they were led away. "Maybe it's best if I just go back to Earth. I never meant to cause you so much trouble." But Horus took Nicholas' face in his hands, his gaze intense and unwavering. "No, Nicholas, we're in this together. I'm not going anywhere without you." They shared a quick but passionate kiss before being pulled apart by the guards. As they were marched off to pack their belongings, Nicholas and Horus exchanged a look of fierce determination, silently vowing to find a way to be together, no matter the cost. Nicholas and Horus slunk through the neon-lit streets of Andromeda Prime's seedy underbelly, their cloaked forms blending into the shadows. The air reeked of cheap booze and desperation as they entered a grimy bar nestled between a pawn shop and a boarded-up storefront. Inside, the dim lights flickered over a menagerie of alien lowlifes hunched over their drinks. They slid into a booth in the far corner, the torn vinyl seats sticking to their skin. Horus leaned in close, his amber eyes glinting beneath his hood. "I have a plan," he whispered, his deep voice barely audible over the droning techno music. "An old friend of mine, Zixan, is a master hacker. He can help us infiltrate the university's security system and find proof of Zorax's treachery." Nicholas nodded, impressed by Horus's quick thinking. "Let's do it. Anything to clear our names and expose that bastard." They slipped out the back door into a narrow alley, where a figure emerged from the shadows. Zixan was a Zorgon, his amphibious skin glistening with moisture under the flickering light. He pressed a small device into Horus's palm, his webbed fingers cool against Nicholas's skin. "This contains a potent virus," Zixan rasped, his gills fluttering. "Upload it to the university servers, and I'll have full access to the system. Find the evidence you need." That night, Nicholas and Horace crept through the university's silent halls, their hearts pounding in their chests. Nicholas's knowledge of the campus layout, gleaned from countless late-night study sessions, guided them past the patrolling security drones. They reached the server room undetected, the door sliding open with a hiss. As Horace stood guard, his forearms tensed and ready, Nicholas set to work. His fingers flew over the holographic interface, bypassing firewalls and encryption with skills honed during his rebellious teenage years on Earth. The virus uploaded with a soft chime, and Nicholas let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. But their relief was short-lived. Footsteps echoed down the hallway, growing louder with each passing second. Nicholas and Horace exchanged a panicked glance before diving behind a towering server rack, their bodies pressed together in the cramped space. The door slid open, and a group of technicians burst in, their voices raised in confusion and alarm. "The system's been breached," one of them shouted, his four eyes wide with fear. "Initiate lockdown protocols." Nicholas and Horace held their breath, hardly daring to move as the technicians scurried around the room, their tentacles flying over the interfaces. Sweat beaded on Nicholas's forehead, his heart hammering against his ribs. If they were caught now, it would all be over. Sweat beaded on Nicholas' brow as he huddled behind the server rack, his body pressed tightly against Horace's muscular form. The footsteps of the technicians grew louder, echoing off the metal walls of the server room. Nicholas held his breath, his heart pounding in his ears. The spindly Andromedan with 6 arms approached their hiding spot, his antennae twitching as he scanned the area. Nicholas could feel Horace tensing beside him, ready to spring into action if necessary. Just as the technician was about to peek behind the server bank, a shrill alarm pierced the air, causing the Andromedan to jump back in surprise. "Code red, security breach in Sector 7, a robotic voice announced over the intercom. The technicians scrambled, their tentacles flying over the holographic interfaces as they tried to locate the source of the breach. Nicholas and Horace exchanged a glance, realizing this was their chance. They waited until the technicians had rushed out of the room before bolting from their hiding spot, their feet pounding against the metal floor as they raced through the empty corridors. They burst out of the building and into the cool night air, their chests heaving as they gulped down lungfuls of oxygen. Nicholas leaned against the wall, his legs shaking from the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Horace pulled out a small communicator and contacted Zixon, his voice low and urgent. "Zixon, we've uploaded the virus. Were you able to access the system?" Zixon's raspy voice crackled through the device. "Affirmative, the virus was successful. I'm already sifting through the data. I'll contact you as soon as I find anything we can use against Zorax." Nicholas and Horace made their way back to Horace's off-campus apartment, their bodies heavy with exhaustion. They collapsed onto the bed, their limbs tangled together as they tried to catch their breath. As the adrenaline began to fade, a sense of pride and accomplishment washed over them. They had taken the first step in fighting back against those who sought to destroy their love. Nicholas nestled into Horace's arms, feeling safe and secure in his lover's embrace. Morning came all too soon, the sun's rays filtering through the curtains and rousing them from their slumber. Nicholas groaned, burying his face in Horace's chest, reluctant to face the day. Suddenly, Horace's communicator chimed, signaling an incoming message. Horace sat up, his amber eyes widening as he read Zixon's urgent missive. "Nicholas, wake up," Horace said, shaking the human gently. "Zixon found something. Zorax has been secretly recording students in compromising situations and using the footage to blackmail them for favors and money." Nicholas bolted upright, his blue eyes blazing with anger. "That slimy bastard. We have to expose him and put an end to his scheming once and for all." Horace nodded, his 4 fists clenched in determination. "We will, Nicholas. We'll make him pay for what he's done to us and countless other students. But first, we need to meet with Zixon and get our hands on that evidence." They quickly dressed and left the apartment, their hearts filled with a renewed sense of purpose. As they navigated the bustling streets of Andromeda Prime, Nicholas reached out and took Horace's hand in his own, squeezing it tightly. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Nicholas's fingers trembled as he dialed the emergency number for the Andromeda Prime authorities. His heart raced as he relayed the damning evidence against Zorax, his voice wavering but determined. Horus stood beside him, his 4 hands clenched into fists, his amber eyes blazing with a mix of anger and anticipation. Within hours, the scandal had erupted across the university campus. Holographic news bulletins flashed with images of Zorax's sneering face as reporters detailed the shocking revelations of his blackmail and extortion scheme. Students who had suffered under Zorax's thumb came forward in droves, their voices united in a chorus of outrage and demands for justice. Faced with an overwhelming tide of public pressure, the university administration had no choice but to take swift action. Dean Zorgath, his usually stern face now contorted with a mix of embarrassment and fury, announced Zorax's immediate suspension and issued a formal apology to Nicholas and Horus for their wrongful expulsion. But Zorax, ever the coward, had no intention of facing the consequences of his actions. As news of his impending arrest spread, he made a desperate bid for freedom, racing to the spaceport in a futile attempt to flee Andromeda Prime. Nicholas and Horus watched with grim satisfaction as the authorities apprehended Zorax mere steps from his getaway ship, his 4 arms bound behind his back as he was dragged away, spitting curses and threats. In the interrogation room, Zorax's veneer of bravado quickly crumbled under the relentless questioning of the Andromedan detectives. His voice quivering, he revealed the shocking truth behind his actions. He was but a pawn in a much larger game, a mere foot soldier in the ranks of a secretive organization known as the Pure Andromedans. This shadowy group, he confessed, was a xenophobic cabal dedicated to preserving the supposed supremacy of the Andromedan race at any cost. With tentacles that stretched into every corner of Andromedan society, from the halls of government to the very university Nicholas and Horus called home, the Pure Andromedans sought to sow discord and division between species, to keep the galaxy fractured and weak. As word of this insidious conspiracy spread, the galaxy erupted in a firestorm of shock and outrage. News feeds buzzed with heated debates and impassioned calls for action, as citizens of every species grappled with the unsettling realization that the specter of xenophobia lurked far closer than any had dared to imagine. Amidst the chaos, Nicholas and Horus found themselves thrust into the spotlight, hailed as heroes for their role in exposing the Pure Andromedans and their malignant agenda. Invitations poured in from across the galaxy, urging the unlikely pair to share their story and rally others to the cause of interspecies unity. And so, on a stage before a sea of faces from 100 different worlds, Nicholas and Horus stood hand in hand, their hearts swelling with a fierce determination. As the roar of the crowd washed over them, a cacophony of voices joined in a single, unwavering cry for change. Nicholas and Horus knew that their fight was only just beginning. The road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but in that moment, buoyed by the strength of their love and the support of the countless allies they had never known they had, Nicholas and Horus felt an unshakable conviction that a brighter future lay just over the horizon. A future where the boundaries between species would crumble and the galaxy would stand as one, united in the name of love and understanding. As the roar of the crowd faded and the rally came to a close, Nicholas and Horus found themselves approached by a mysterious Andromedan woman. She introduced herself as Zarathi, her deep purple skin and striking amber eyes lending an air of gravity to her words. With a furtive glance over her shoulder, she leaned in close and whispered, "I have vital information about the Pure Andromedans. We must speak in private." Intrigued and unsettled by her urgent tone, Nicholas and Horus followed Zarathi to a secluded corner of the rally grounds. There she revealed her past as a former member of the xenophobic society, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and determination. "The Pure Andromedans are planning an attack on the upcoming Intergalactic Unity Festival," she said, her hands clenched into fists. "They mean to sow chaos and discord, to drive a wedge between the Andromedan Empire and the United Earth Federation." Nicholas and Horus exchanged a worried glance, the gravity of the situation sinking in. The festival was a symbol of hope and unity, a celebration of the diversity that made the galaxy strong. An attack on such an event could shatter the fragile peace they had worked so hard to build. "We have to stop them," Horus said, his amber eyes blazing with conviction. "We can't let them tear the galaxy apart." Zarathi nodded, a glimmer of hope crossing her face. "I will help you in any way I can, but we must act quickly. The festival is only days away." They assembled a team of trusted allies, reaching out to friends and contacts from across the galaxy. Zixan, the brilliant Zorgon hacker, proved invaluable, using his skills to infiltrate the pure Andromedan's communication network. Through intercepted messages and decoded transmissions, they pieced together the chilling details of the planned attack. "They have sleeper agents," Zixan said, his webbed fingers flying over the holographic interface. Disguised as festival attendees, armed with powerful explosives, they mean to strike at the heart of the celebration. The team raced against the clock, poring over security footage and guest lists, trying to identify the hidden threats. They worked tirelessly, fueled by adrenaline and determination, knowing that every second counted. As the festival drew near, they put their plan into action. Donning disguises and assuming false identities, they slipped into the crowds, eyes peeled for any sign of the sleeper agents. It was a tense and nerve-wracking game of cat and mouse, each team member acutely aware of the lives at stake. The first agent fell to Horus's quick reflexes and powerful arms, subdued before he could reach for his concealed weapon. The second was apprehended by Zarathi's keen eye and silver tongue, lured away from the crowds and into the waiting arms of the authorities. One by one, the team neutralized the threats, their hearts pounding with each close call and narrow escape. The festival grounds became a labyrinth of danger and deception, a battlefield where the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Finally, as the last agent was apprehended and the immediate danger seemed to pass, a chilling realization dawned on them. The explosives, the final piece of the pure Andromedan's insidious puzzle, were already in place, hidden throughout the festival grounds and set to detonate in mere minutes. With no time to evacuate the unsuspecting crowds, Nicholas stepped forward, his blue eyes filled with grim determination. "I'll disarm the bombs," he said, his voice steady despite the fear that gripped his heart. "I have training in human explosives from my time in the military back on Earth." Horus opened his mouth to protest, to insist on facing the danger together, but Nicholas silenced him with a look. "There's no time," he said, his hand finding Horus's and squeezing tight. "I need you to keep the crowd safe, to make sure no one panics." With a final, desperate kiss, Nicholas turned and raced into the heart of the danger, armed only with his wits and his stubborn determination to protect the love and unity they had fought so hard to build. As Horus watched him go, his heart in his throat, he knew that the fate of the galaxy rested on the shoulders of one brave human, a man he loved more than life itself. With a heavy heart, Nicholas raced through the festival grounds, his eyes scanning for the hidden explosives. His hands trembled as he carefully disarmed each device, the weight of countless lives pressing down on his shoulders. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he worked, his mind flashing to the faces of the innocent festival-goers, their laughter and joy now replaced by fear and panic. Horus and the others worked tirelessly to evacuate the crowds, their voices hoarse from shouting directions and urging people to safety. The once vibrant festival had transformed into a scene of chaos, with throngs of terrified attendees pushing and shoving in a desperate bid to escape the looming threat. As Nicholas approached the final bomb, his heart skipped a beat. Something wasn't right. He examined the device closer, his brow furrowing in confusion. It was a decoy, a distraction from the real danger lurking above. "Horus!" Nicholas shouted, his voice cutting through the din of the panicked crowd. "The bombs are a diversion. The real threat is up there." He pointed to the massive ship hovering ominously over the festival, its sleek, dark hull a stark contrast against the bright Andromedan sky. Horus, Zarathi and Zixan rushed to Nicholas's side, their faces grim as they realized the true extent of the pure Andromedan's plan. "A biological weapon," Zarathi whispered, her eyes wide with horror, "designed to target non-Andromedan species. If they release it—" "We can't let that happen," Nicholas said, his voice filled with determination. "We have to stop them no matter the cost." The four of them raced towards the ship, their hearts pounding in unison as they boarded the vessel, ready to face whatever dangers lay ahead. The corridors of the ship were eerily quiet, the only sound the echoing of their footsteps against the metal floor. Suddenly, a horde of pure Andromedan warriors emerged from the shadows, their eyes blazing with hatred and fanaticism. Nicholas and his companions fought tooth and nail, their skills and teamwork put to the ultimate test as they battled their way through the ship. Finally, they reached the ship's command center, where they found themselves face to face with Zorkrath, the ruthless leader of the pure Andromedans. His eyes glinted with malice as he sneered at the intruders, his hand hovering over the control panel that would unleash the devastating biological weapon upon the unsuspecting festival-goers below. "Far too late," Zorkrath snarled, his voice dripping with venom. "The age of Andromedan supremacy is at hand, and there's nothing you can do to stop it." With a final, anguished look at Horus, Nicholas charged towards the reactor, his heart heavy with the knowledge of what he must do. Horus, realizing Nicholas' intentions, let out a desperate cry, his forearms reaching out in a futile attempt to stop his lover. But it was too late. Nicholas slammed his hand down on the reactor's manual detonation switch, his eyes filling with tears as he whispered a final "I love you" to Horus. The reactor exploded in a blinding flash of light, the force of the blast throwing Nicholas's body against the far wall like a rag doll. Horus watched in horror as the love of his life was consumed by the flames, the ship shuddering and buckling around them as the explosion tore through its hull. The biological weapon, along with the twisted dreams of the pure Andromedans, was destroyed in an instant, reduced to nothing more than ashes and dust. As the ship began to disintegrate around them, Horus, Zarathi, and Zixan barely managed to escape, their hearts heavy with grief and loss. They watched from the safety of the festival grounds as the ship exploded in a final devastating blast, illuminating the sky above Andromeda Prime like a second sun. In the aftermath of the tragedy, as the galaxy mourned the loss of a true hero, Horus made a solemn vow. He would carry on Nicholas's legacy, fighting for a future where love knew no boundaries and where the diversity of life was celebrated rather than feared. Though their time together had been brief, the impact of their love would be felt for generations to come, a shining example of the power of unity in the face of hatred and division. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.